Does good news sell? You know, I always wonder, they should have a show called Good News. Yeah, you know, the good news.
This is the Good News Podcast, back again for another episode. Today I think I'd like it to be a little more relaxed, hence the summer clothes. The sun is shining out there. We're all taking advantage of it.
Casual and business attire, yeah, for sure. We're
human beings, we can make up our
Friday.
minds.
It's casual Friday. It's not even Friday, whatever, it's all good.
Tuesday, but big deal. It is summertime.
Damn it.
I think we all suffer to a degree from seasonal affective disorder, and you can see a lot of happy people out there. I know today I passed so many people just willing to smile and engage me. It wasn't so much like, you know, when you're walking sometimes and people just give you the nod. Now it's like, hey, how are you?
Yeah. It's interesting. I heard on a podcast recently that vitamin D is a major thing that we have to actually take into consideration for our daily routine, because up here in the Northwest, the Pacific Northwest, in British Columbia and in Washington, we actually don't get as much sunlight as, you know, other states or provinces. So as a result, that's actually one of the things that you have to give babies when they're born. There's certain supplements that parents can opt to give, or certain nutrients, whatever, during like the first couple of days.
Yeah.
But vitamin D is it's mandatory.
Yeah. So hang on. You can expose your child to sunlight, but there's also surrogate vitamin D supplement form for children.
Yeah.
Really?
So they actually provide like they give it an injection usually, right? And
wow.
But one of my friends is a nurse, and she was telling me that that's one thing that is definitely required for people, especially in this area of.
What happens to kids that don't get it?
They're sad all the time. They become emos. That's how the emos.
That's how it started.
That's how that race began. Parents stopped giving their kids vitamin D up here, and emos, the rock emos, are from the Pacific Northwest. It's Seattle punk scene, right?
No kidding.
So that makes sense. There's a theory for you right there. Came up with that on the spot.
Definitely not bullshit.
But yeah, it's interesting. I didn't know that for when I was growing up, that Seattle is a really big rock and roll scene and a massive music influence.
Yeah. No, honestly, like a lot of people, I saw Frasier come out of it, and I thought, that's Seattle for you.
I had one aunt who was like British, and she watched Frasier, so it's like the most stereotypical thing to have.
By the way, I'm sure people that check out Reddit know this, but every single person that called in to Frasier's radio show was actually a celebrity. They had Michael J. Fox. They even had Van Halen at one point. They had Ben Stiller. Every single person that called on was actually a celebrity.
That's really crazy.
I thought that's pretty interesting. And in addition to that, I heard Kelsey Grammer himself actually improvise almost, I think it was one scene every episode. He'd go completely off script. Yeah,
that's a really cool technique that a lot of different shows are using from different genres. Curb Your Enthusiasm did that for... They improvise a lot of their scenes. They have a general idea of what they're going to do. Yeah. And the actors just kind of like write the dialogue as they went out. Yeah. So that's a really cool skill, as far as, that's what Whose Line Is It Anyways is all about. Yeah. Showing how actors can actually work on their toes.
That's pretty funny. I mean, we look at a lot of things that are amazing for the human body and what's good for the intellect. We know that food that's organic, that's come from natural settings, is the best thing for the body. It's so too apparently with information. Yeah. When you look at Buddhists, when they give a discussion, I listened to Audio Dharma, I mentioned it before. When they give a speech, though, they basically say the name of what it is, but they give it right there. There's no pre-recording done for it. It is organic information. Yeah. There's nothing pre-scripted. It's not like a president's speech. Mm-hmm. Like, this is something to check out. I don't know. I'm sure you've heard about this. Every time they had something like a rocket takes off, right? Yeah. And the president is supposed to give a mention about this. There's an alternative speech written for the outcomes of these scenarios. If, say, the rocket didn't make it back, there's a speech lined up for that. And it gets pretty morbid. It's pretty macabre to read these things. You know what I mean? Macabre. But the same, you're getting canned information. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's not good for the body. It's not good for your mind, really. Yeah. No, sure. I mean, that's why in university it's just so much more enjoyable. Not only are you taking more electives, granted you have to take some things that supplement your degree, whatever it might be, but you have professors now that are passionate and that they give a lot of their information just off the cuff. It's right there. Yeah. Whereas throughout elementary school, it's it's all canned and pre-prepared for you. You know,
Yeah.
it's like eating Lunchables as opposed to having your mom make a home cooked meal.
Yeah, electives is one thing that I actually mentioned to my nephew, a few months back. I was telling him that when you're in the university experience, sometimes if you find that you can lighten your course load and you have a light course load for a semester, you'll take the three classes and just have a bit of a chilled semester and be like, okay, that's fine. But a few times I opted to pick up an elective that I wouldn't have picked up otherwise, just to see what else is out there.
Yeah.
And it always served me well. All of my friends have had wicked experiences with the same idea.
Yeah.
Just going out and trying something different.
Yeah.
I took this one ancient religions class. It was a cool anthropology class. Sociology was wicked. Just took that class.
Yeah.
I took a short story class.
Yeah.
And that was really helpful for just learning how to write.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. You look at the most successful people on earth, they're not really specialized in their skills.
Yeah.
What they can do is tell stories.
And short stories are interesting because you're trying to paint such a vivid image, with a smaller, amount of words, right?
Yeah, this is something I think about when I like to draw. I like to try and see if I can't create the most amount of information, the biggest story with the least amount of lines possible. And I think that's the mark of a lot of great artists, is they can do that. They can convey just a wealth of knowledge, volumes and volumes and volumes.
We were talking about suggestion, right? Like suggestion is such a big thing. Like you were saying that before you even finish some of your, your works, I like calling it works because it sounds legit. But before you finish them, you said that that's when you feel like they have the most suggestion and kind of offer more depth, right?
Yeah, and again, that's why I think it's so important to have organic, unplanned information, like we do with these podcasts. There's literally no planning, because
there is some planning.
I check the headlines, but
yeah, people do ask just in case. And people have asked me in the past, what exactly do you guys do for a setup? How do you just jump into it? We do a little bit of prep, just stretch
a little.
Yeah, basically just are we gonna cover some main subjects? Sometimes it's what? All right, we're gonna go completely off the cuff, and that's ultimately what we want to do. Because nowadays, it's something that we've talked about a lot in the past. People don't want to hear that bullshit, fake talk.
Well, see, that's what I mean. Like, if we pre-plan it, then you're excluding the possibility of having something new and exciting come into the fold.
Yeah, and a lot of the times we get surprised when something just kind of comes out, and then you often kind of high-five yourself in your head. You're like, that was kind of sick. So got that wrong recording, right? That's what we're thinking about.
Yeah, exactly. So, it's like how they found the Higgs boson particle. Yeah. You know how that was? I mean, obviously it took a lot of coordination and a lot of communication. But it just kept happening. Kept happening.
Yeah.
And eventually something amazing came out of it.
Yeah.
I mean, so much information did come out of it. They found a lot more than the Higgs boson, but still, that's how it happened. Yeah. I mean, you're just letting things happen until something comes of itself, right?
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah. And that's why it's important. And I think we can apply that just about everything we do. I mean, when we're out there in public, a lot of us we're constantly referencing the index of information that we have, and for a lot of us that's television. Yeah. And so we're out in a public setting, and somebody might say something to us, and we think, what's appropriate? And in that Rolodex comes out a line from television. So many of us do this. Like my family in particular, we communicate through movie lines. That's it.
No, we watched a lot of television as kids, right? Yeah, and but what's going to be the next generation's thing now? Is it still going to continue to be... Because I feel like it does change. Yeah. I'm not saying that our parents were, doing radio shit. But, it could have been something else, right? Yeah. But we have, certain, specific, generation-specific references. Yeah. And then the next generation, their generation is going to grow up with never having not had the internet. Yeah. That's a weird sentence, but whatever.
Is it a double negative?
No, but it worked. Yeah. But they're just gonna have that connection throughout their whole lives. Yeah. I mean, I spoke to my brother about that the other day because he has 2 daughters now. Yeah. And I was like, we're talking about his oldest, which is she's about two and something. Yeah. And we were just talking about how she is able to use the iPad and she's able to use his iPhone. They're really intuitive for kids. And I was like, do you still limit the amount that she uses it though? He's like, yeah, honestly, we don't let her use it much. We just kind of every once in a while. Yeah. And there is certain games that are proven to kind of help them with learning.
Mm-hmm.
So the thing is that, yeah, it's interesting that back in the day, like the last generation, a lot of people had disconnect from their kids because they were out working, both, and they'd have a nanny, right?
Yeah.
So but nowadays, there's a disconnect because a lot of these kids are getting raised by the TV screen, Netflix or their iPads, right? And you have you can literally fill a kid's day with their creativity and wonder with that.
Yeah.
But you need to, keep it expanded and keep it. So I don't know. I'm curious as to what the next generation is gonna look like for that.
Yeah, you know what? I was thinking about this the other day, and one of my predictions. I mean, I in no way have any real grounded experience in this area, but I get the feeling that at some point, our communication will be entirely media based for a select few of us, and we'll be able to coordinate all of the media that we know of. It's like memes and Reddit, right?
Mm-hmm.
Memes cross so many pop culture references, and they come together as one.
Yeah.
But it's still a bit cumbersome. It still takes somebody to post that. Now, imagine we all have, I don't know, say an interface, a holographic interface here. That's like our profile. When we go in public, here's our profile. When we communicate, there'll be a pop culture reference coming at us, and we'll be able to produce one on the spot with the repertoire of information at our disposal. Yeah. I get the feeling that that's eventually how we'll be communicating. Yeah. And soon we'll be able to build our own avatars. And people are already talking about this in Google. They talk about revamping Second Life. People that watch The Office saw Dwight Schrute make a double of himself. Just same as everything, except he happens to be able to fly.
Yeah.
Soon,
he works in an office.
The same paper company, all of that. Yeah. Soon, that's what we'll be able to do. And it's funny that's. I mean, if you look at the Vedas, or if you look at a lot of the ancient religions that point at what the astral plane looks like, all the beings there can manipulate their form at will. Flowers can become people or bees or whatever the hell you want. It's up to your mind.
Professor McGonagall can become a cat. So
yeah, she could literally exist there.
Yeah,
according to the many worlds she does. But no, that's just a prediction of mine for how things might be. And you know what? I get the feeling that I'm gonna be way off because there are so many factors at play here.
Yeah.
And this is one thing that confuses me. I saw the other day, for those of you that don't know, one of the largest democratic democracies is having a vote now. That's India. And it's getting a bit of a mention here in the West, but one of the things that struck me was it CNN or Fox that talked about it? I know it's laughable even to say those names, but on one of the two, can't remember, one of these guys, John Oliver called him the Six Flag guy. He really does look like that though. One of the things he says is they're not. Yeah, he says they're not even in our hemisphere. Why should we worry about that?
He was like.
Can you process that for a second? Hang on. How can you actually compartmentalize your thinking to not incorporate?
He doesn't give a fuck. He literally said it. He just he put it out there. But basically, he's just saying, he's like, I don't see them, right? So I don't really give a fuck. And he's like that's what he feels.
I've never physically seen what happened in Fukushima. Yeah. To say I don't care. It's just so stupid
that those are the people that are giving us the news.
Yeah.
You think about Vice, we talk about them a lot, we pump them, but imagine one of those people saying something really fucking left or right wing like that. Well, I don't know, that's just stupid. It's not really political. That's just bullshit, for him to say that. But you can't imagine one of them because they talk like real people.
Yeah.
But this stupid arena that, I don't know, this media has now arranged and they kind of play within.
I almost don't think it's media per se. I get the feeling that it's just old world think.
Yeah.
One of the most interesting documentaries I've seen recently, recommended by a friend of mine, a guy that runs Spectrum Radio, Troy, amazing guy, does his own radio show. He's a DJ in the meantime.
Yeah.
He recommended I watch something called The Net, and it's about how the internet was essentially created. Now, we went from having personal computers, and we saw the history about that. Essentially, war. You look at World War I and II. You had enemies sending information. Well, obviously, the Allies sending information internally. You had enemies doing the same thing. They're really all one and the same. But anyways, to decipher that information, they developed the Turing machine. Alan Turing develops this. Yeah. And you see further along the line, we actually developed the personal computer. But it wasn't until, according to this, when you watch the documentary, you see scientists and artists get together and discuss ways in which they can improve communication. Essentially, that was just the natural outgrowth of communication.
Yeah.
Once we have a processing device, we suddenly recognize how we can communicate with one another. And it's very, very interesting because it also connects to people like Ted Kaczynski or the Unabomber. You look at the CIA, programs of mind control, LSD. LSD played a huge role in the development of the internet because at the same time it's an expansion of the consciousness, and people recognize that you need to have this, you can't just give everybody LSD.
Yeah.
And the idea was essentially to have technology democratized to human beings.
Yeah.
That's a natural next step. But Ted Kaczynski comes out, and his idea is that, well, we can't necessarily have the internet or this kind of technology democratized immediately, because that means we could also democratize atom bombs, for instance. You know, direct energy weapons. I think he made a pretty valid point. You know, the media made him out to look like he was a ridiculous psychopath. You know, totally insane. People say psychopath like it's synonymous with, like, just off the chain. It's not really the case. I had somebody tell me the other day, a lot of, like, I bumped into somebody the other day who thought that anarchy was synonymous with chaos, and I can't, like, it gets my back up to hear that. Yeah, because they're not the same thing at all.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, just please look it up. Don't just take it at face value. But yeah, so I mean, it just kind of goes to show you just what kind of thinking goes into the development of these ideas. But on the alternative side to developing the beautiful and creative idea that the internet was the CIA trying to understand how human behavior works, because suddenly they see the potential for an outgrowth of, you know, human creativity, human communication. How does that affect the global power balance? Yeah. So you see them trying to understand what authoritarian thinking looks like within human beings. Mm-hmm. Ultimately, because they want to control. You know, when you see something frightening you, ultimately you want to control yourself. Yeah. And overcome that problem. Yeah. So you can understand why that was their go-to response. Now, what they intended to do once they gained control is another story altogether that's been playing out in recent years, and it doesn't look like it's a very good idea. But when you look at what was happening, you had a group called the Macy Foundation. Sorry to interrupt. Yeah. And the Macy Foundation was just trying to understand essentially what evil looks like. But it was really just black and white thinking. You have good and you have evil. And how do you deal with that?
The thing is, we talk about this, when you're those individuals, like Obama wakes up every day, Hitler woke up every day, looked in the mirror, like all these individuals that we consider to be infamous or evil, whatever you want to say it. Mm-hmm. They woke up, they look in the mirror, they fixed up their tie, and they didn't feel like they were bad people. They felt like they were going out there like, hey, I'm doing the right thing. No, every human
being does that. We all get up and we think like, whatever I'm doing right now, it's ultimately for the best. Yeah. You know?
And like, as far as corporations go, that's what happens, is that they have a disconnect at some point. Yeah. You know, they have a disconnect with reference to collateral damage or whatever the fuck you want to call it. You know, people dying for, you know, profit margins, right? All these things, that's a disconnect at some point. Yeah. You know, you can't perceive that person was like that their whole life.
No.
You know, I was talking to Jamie.
That's right. I mean, this is the way we think, though. And I think this is the younger generation is going to take it further than we will. But we can obviously see now, and I'm not going to try and pump ourselves with this, but we had linear thinking then, and now we have spherical thinking. Yeah. So we can look at something from many angles at once. But that older thinking, we look at what it incepted today, right? We talk about New World Order, for instance. Mm-hmm. Now, that's a legitimate idea. That's not just hearsay. That's not just Alex Jones screaming at the top of his lungs. This idea looks at what the national boundaries mean. It looks at what the global population thinks like and what it's eventually going to have to be when you have the democratization of technology that we do now. Yeah. You'll either have total chaos or you'll have total peace. Yeah. Now, one of the ways they're trying to ensure this is through the New World Order, right? You have one system of religion, but hang on a second.
You have to call it something else, because it's like you mentioned those words, in those three words, and that you've lost it. Then you know, so many people are just going to be
right. I know. They associate it with whatever else.
What do you call it? Like you call it like mass industrialization, mass capitalization, or you know?
Well, no, because that's not really what it is at all. Honestly, people can go to that level, and they can take it further if they want, but we all know what we're talking about when we say NWO. Unless you're a big wrestling fan and you think it's that.
No, but that's what I'm saying. That it's a key thing, though. I'm not saying that in this conversation alone. Yeah. But when we go out, when you speak to people in general, if you use certain words, right? Yeah. And you say certain things, you can tell by a person's facial response that they've already lost you. Like they're just like all right, this guy's a bit of a wacko now, and they might still be giving you the nod. They might still, but in their eyes you can see their.
For sure. No, sometimes I'll go like Tesla, and they'll be like, oh.
Yeah, but like certain things can a positive response like
that, for sure, and then sometimes
you might catch somebody's attention. Which
sometimes
is
you'll just say like conspiracy. People like ears prick up. Yeah. Some people they go okay.
Or like suppose you're just talking, right, and then you go into you're like, and you know what, I honestly don't know what to think about Tupac being alive or dead. If somebody sees you questioning like a major issue like that too, like it's enough to kind of set them off, right? So that's like a popular conspiracy that a lot of people talk about. And it's just like, or September 11th, even though a lot of people accept that it was, there's a lot of bullshit there and that the government was probably involved. A lot of people, even the mass majority of the states now. But if you bring it up in conversation, you still split the audience. Like there's certain people that are like, okay, man, this conversation, like seriously. And to them, to people that have not even heard it brought up that much, they are going off the mass idea that like, God damn it, you're bringing this up again, right? So a lot of people don't actually know.
The whole idea, like honestly, that's what we're all trying to do as human beings. We're all trying to reach a state of awareness. Yeah. We're all eventually going to have to be very upfront with one another if we're going to live in harmony. There can't be any lies. Honestly, there can't be. But sorry, let me go back to this idea about the NWO. Yeah. So you can see that it's structured. You have a one world government. You have a one world police force. Now, you look at the way societies were structured in the past, right? You have one government within this nation, and you have a police force and an army to enforce that. Yeah. Right? That's linear. That's really linear because it doesn't attach, or it doesn't go after any of the preventative solutions for problems. You don't put enough money into education, and you raise people in poor conditions. Naturally, crime is going to be on the rise. Yeah. So you can't just invest more into a police system to counteract that. That's not going to solve anything. Yeah. In addition to that, you have a very bloated government system that eventually goes on to fund things like, the CIA bringing drugs into the country. Yeah. You saw things like ibogaine. People don't know what that is. It's a hallucinogenic psychedelic drug that came from Africa, and
it's used in a lot of ancient tribal ceremonies.
It's also used to help people deal with addictions, and it has a high success rate.
Specifically, opiate addictions.
Opiate addictions, things like heroin, things like cocaine. It's really successful.
Well, not cocaine, but
no, because I've heard it used for those too.
Well, no, but it's usually opiates. Like you have your codeine, morphine, or heroin, right? These drugs, right? Yeah. But I guess there probably have been cases. Basically, what it does though is that it creates such a powerful psychedelic, trip that your body somehow forgets its dependency to that.
Well, that's because I know we're getting off topic here a little bit, but they say that's because initially the conditions in your brain that permit an addiction is just a lack of communication between the hemispheres. There's a lack of biochemistry there. So what that drug actually allows you to do is to reconnect. Yeah. So, but besides that drug came into the country, and not only were local drug dealers opposed to that because you're no longer having addicted people coming for your supply, the government recognized this as well, and this is bad because suddenly you're losing funding as well. So they got rid of it. But anyways, you can see how there's a similarity, right,
just between to be clear, the local level. The opiates are a massive market for prescriptions in the States, right? So to actually have something that weans people's addictions off of it, that would be a major hit to the profit margin. And people, to us, you can understand in very clear words in the fact that, okay, you look at, you're a corporation, you're a boardroom sitting down, right? And something's going to come around that's going to completely destroy your bottom line. Mm-hmm. You're going to go from making $10 billion to making $7 billion, right? Mm-hmm. It's going to make a major loss. Now, people say, what's $3 billion to them? They already make, no, for them, it's all about, because they're basically one person, one businessman. They don't care about the projection of that whole company's lifetime, the whole company's life, right? Mm-hmm. They only care about their time in that company. They want to get as much out of it as possible. That's how corruption continues, right? Because you have bursts of corruption. Mm-hmm. As every person comes through, you have a Bernie Madoff, you have a Lehman Brothers, these guys, and you just have them come in and they just, they're bursts of corruption, right? Mm-hmm. So people ask, how is that possible that you don't have people, getting a better understanding? Why? Because every person wants to have their go at it, right? Mm-hmm. So I don't know. That's interesting that you know, if you cut that off, you know, it's...
Yeah, well, I mean, this is what I want to talk about here and now, is how can we actually do that?
Yeah.
Because that's a really, really poisonous practice.
Yeah.
It's killing us as a species. We can't let everybody have a go at you know, being a Bertie Madoff. We can't have everyone being a go at being a George Bush, God forbid.
Or Wolf of Wall Street, right? You can't do... Yeah.
No, and nor do people want that, I don't think. But the way in which I think that's going to happen is, like we talked about, through that spherical thinking. If you can understand something from every angle, you can recognize what's best.
Yeah.
Something I ask myself on a daily basis, and one of the reasons I'm actually dressed like this and not wearing a collared shirt today is because I ask myself, what would the best Graeme do? You know, we talk about the many worlds theory, right? We look at the whole universe and everything as a pie chart, and you being able to pull from that what you want,
I
right?
just picture you like, my master is a hand. Like you turn...
No, seriously, man. There's a big Rolodex of you to pick from, right?
Yeah.
You know, every single instant is a trillion billion different realities.
Yeah, that's...
Like, honestly, when I went like this, every single frame of my arm going to this point was innumerable realities. That's what it took.
An infinite amount of times.
And we're moving through that. But so the idea basically is that there are no certainties, there are probabilities, however. And you can increase the probability for certain outcomes based on your thoughts, your feelings, your brain chemistry, so on. So you can ask yourself, what's the best version of me going to do about this when you encounter certain things?
Yeah.
And one of the things that comes to my mind when I encounter problems like this is to try and see it from every angle. And when I do that, I no longer am just restricted to just that punishment reward system that a lot of us base our decisions on.
Yeah.
You know, like, this is good for me, let's be utilitarian, let's make this good for a lot of other people. It's more than that.
Yeah.
You know, and this is where it gets really complicated too. And this is why we come back to the New World Order idea. I know stigma attached to that word, but part of the idea is that it's not, the people running it don't think it's inherently bad. They think it's a good decision. Why? Because it's creating... Well, yeah, stability, but you're also creating a catalyst for people to develop themselves. Honestly, if you look at what their documents are showing, they're saying that one world government can't work unless people renounce religions.
Yeah.
That's one of the things they have to do away with. And I don't think it's a good idea. To be perfectly clear, I don't think it's a good idea. Eventually, I think it's good to have no boundaries, but people need to do it themselves, organically. You can't have that enforced.
Dude, like, in certain countries, they still... 50% of their population doesn't have basic rights. Like in Saudi Arabia, right? Women cannot go out in public without a male's permission. Like, you know, they can't drive.
Yeah.
Right? They can't go to school.
Yeah.
But
those things are being challenged there. I know that there's women out there that go ahead and drive anyways.
But like, that's enforced through, like, you know, and even now, actually, I heard it was in, I'm not sure, I think possibly Syria, or I can't remember where. They just said that they made it illegal to be an atheist. You're labeled as a terrorist if you promote atheistic beliefs.
No kidding.
That's what they're saying. So literally, and the Young Turks was talking about this, literally by thinking of nothing, right? To have no beliefs. That's essentially what atheism is, right? To have no beliefs, just be chilling, you're breaking the law and you're a terrorist. So they've covered all the bases now. Everybody's a terrorist.
You want to talk about a word that has terrible stigma attached to it?
God damn.
Terrorist.
Terrible. It was
okay, think about this, okay? Do you know who the real terrorists are? The real terrorists are terror experts that we see on the news.
Yeah.
These people, their money comes from the idea of terror. They're the ones that say Flight M370, you know, the missing flight in Malaysia, could actually have landed in Pakistan. They could be loading it with explosives right now. They could be planning to fly it into the Canada or US, right?
Into the Canada. Yeah.
Into the Canada, this big landmass we happen to call home.
Yes.
That's terrorism.
Yeah.
Your news media is terrorism.
Yeah.
What can you do with this?
You cause mass terror.
What can the individual do with this kind of information?
Yeah.
You know, there are 35 homicides in your city in the last year.
Yeah.
What can you do with that?
Yeah.
I mean, individuals aren't. There's no recourse. That's not like, here are your local Congress people, write them and try to change things. Here are community groups you can attend and try to improve the overall mental health of the community. There's no recourse like that associated with it. It's just, these are the things that are wrong. These are the things that are wrong in your society. Look at that. That's it. That's only one part of the solution. Knowing is only part of it.
Back in the day, they used to have like each town or each township, whatever, in this area would have, each beaver dam or whatever that, the historical site would have.
What?
They would have
beaver dam.
Well, beaver pelts was what Langley was all about, right? Fort Langley.
Yeah,
it
that's
was
true.
all about beaver pelts.
Yeah, that's a connection there.
Yeah, but it was what were we just talking about? You just totally took me off.
Well, we were talking about. Sorry, I was talking about something like. Well, we discussed the new one. Yeah, you know what? I dropped it too.
Yeah, no, but beaver pelts in
Fort Langley.
In Fort Langley were the first thing that they traded. So we were talking about so like back in the day, individual small cities would have, for example, like a chamber of commerce, right? That would handle like the city's problems.
Yeah,
it would handle like the
gripes.
cities and
Yeah.
people. This is what I was getting to. I circled away from it.
Yeah.
But they would have a chamber of commerce, and I got reminded of this because taking Woodstock. We were watching it.
Yeah.
And they're like, I want to do a fair in the next couple of months. Like, can I get a notion for that? And they had this kind of setup, and it was there and it existed, and it worked because towns were smaller back then.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it is scary, the notion of communities. People have seen that an individual that lives in a community will live a longer lifespan than an individual that lives alone or a nomadic lifestyle, right?
Yeah, and
But
you
the
can
thing
easily
is-
do that within a city. But sorry, go on.
Yeah, but they actually found with testing on rats, which Charlie Day killed a lot of them before they could actually administer the tests. So he's a rat killer.
Take
right?
care of your rat problem.
And if he can take care of your rats, but he's a real rat Hitler, right? But no, they did these tests on these rats, and they found that within small confined areas, if you have too many rats or too many mice, they get psychological disorders. They start acting like a certain amount of the mice will be in the corner, just like not doing anything, like rapid eye twitches and stuff, right? Or like head twitches. They just start to get crazy.
Yeah.
Because there's a certain, you don't have to be shoulder to shoulder with somebody, but there's a certain amount of concentration of people that you can have.
Yeah.
Now, like, I think, certain things we've grown to accept now, which are like city plots. Each city has a small, maybe half-acre lot, whatever.
Yeah.
And it's like, that is an individual's life. Sometimes generations grow up on that plot. And it's like, that's all you're entitled to, technically. It's like, okay, sure, you can go to parks, you have public areas.
Yeah.
But it seems really foreign when I just sit there and think about it. I'm like, that's all a person is really entitled to. And that's considered like...
Yeah.
And they're making it smaller and smaller. Like the smallest properties in Vancouver, a tiny like rancher, something like a quarter of an acre or something. That's over $1 million. Legit.
Yeah.
That's over $1 million.
Fair enough.
And that's even in Burnaby, right? And Vancouver is one of the most expensive cities to live. So it's easy to bring up these numbers.
Yeah.
But that's crazy. That like you can't, just to live in a nice area, what is it? A bad area is an area where there's crime, where there's going to be not as many facilities.
Yeah.
These are all things that everybody should have. You shouldn't have to deal with crime. You shouldn't have to deal with that kind of bullshit. You should have schools nearby.
Hang on though.
Right?
It's more than that. Honestly though, it's not like I shouldn't have to deal with that. I think there should be better. I know this is going to sound like a bleeding heart kind of perspective, but saying that we shouldn't have to deal with these things, we all need to deal with these things so we don't have to deal with them altogether.
Yeah.
We have to go through it. But sorry, yeah, you were saying.
Yeah, no, but like it's just that these things
these should be necessities.
Yeah, they should like I understand. I don't know. I got when we were in high school, we watched this documentary called Through the Blue Lens, and it was about the downtown east side.
Yeah.
Did you watch it?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it shows like a bunch of people and it shows how our first idea of what drug use and drug addiction and drug dependencies, especially in the downtown east side, we're thinking like these fucking crackheads did it to themselves, like they're retards or whatever, like they deserve it.
Yeah.
Right? And I know the word retard is not politically correct, but you know, we talk how we talk is kind of messed up, right? I talk how I talk, my bad, right?
No, what are you saying bad for, dude? No.
Yeah.
Free speech.
Yeah, so it's like,
Yeah,
no,
people
certain
can
words,
interpret
like, I try to eliminate it, whatever, right? But the blue lens, like, it showed how certain people are actually, you know, they are actually, their dependency came from birth, from, you know, it was genetically, you know, thrown onto them because their parents were drug users.
Yeah.
And so it's like they're born with a drug dependency.
Yeah.
Right? And they're born already in a bad environment.
Like
in a
FAS,
bad part.
for example.
Yeah, fetal alcohol syndrome is with alcohol, but like the whole crack baby thing is actually an interesting anomaly because I heard recently that Dr. Carl Hart, he's done a lot of like dreadlock dude with I think you've seen him, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, he talked about how the whole crack baby phenomena and a lot of the stuff that the stigmas that they talk and the ideas that we've heard about these major drugs like heroin, crack, and you know, other drugs, they're all bullshit, right? That like it's actually not, but like certain things are there that like he's just saying that there's a lot of, you know, misinformation put out there, and you need to actually check out yourself and do it and figure it out.
Yeah.
But this thing showed how like some of the people that are in downtown East Side are there, you know, because not as a result of their actions, but they're there as a result of their circumstances that they're born into, and you know, like it's crazy, man. Some cities in North America and the States, they try to ban like sleeping in public or or having blankets in public.
You can't have panhandling. Look, we restricted panhandling to a certain area.
But you talked about the benches in England.
Yeah. I don't know if you guys have seen this. This is a bench they designed in England. It's just so unbelievably Orwellian. It's not funny.
Yeah.
They've designed a bench that is literally only usable as a bench. It's designed in such a way that it's on a slant. Nobody can sleep on it. It's you have to just kind of lean against it when you're waiting for a bus. Yeah. It's the material it's made of is resistant to any graffiti, and it's just a block. You can't put they think people are gonna tape drugs underneath it or something like that.
They think people are gonna try to have sex with it, and like they're worried about that. That's it's anti-sex proof is what it really is.
Anti-sex proof, another double negative.
No, but like they're saying that you can't put drugs under it and stuff because a lot of people use transactions and stuff. But like that is really bullshit. Like the UK is really at the forefront of a lot of the stuff we talked about.
I'm excited, however, to see how people are going to circumvent it because honestly, this is how it always goes.
Oh yeah, they're gonna do something.
This is part of a game, right? You see somebody that like
Banksy's gonna come out.
Yeah, for sure, man. Like they covered all. They painted one of his walls, right?
Yeah.
And so he goes back and I don't know if this is him. I just saw him on Reddit. He just spray painted "sorry" over the painted wall.
Yeah.
That's how it goes.
Boom.
And the government does not have enough funding. It doesn't have enough manpower to handle people.
Yeah.
My hope is that everybody just keeps banding together and keeps just chipping away at it.
Yeah.
Like the Berlin Wall, man. It's going to come down. You know?
Yeah.
That's just how it has to be. But I think, again, and I do say this a lot, but I really think it's one of the ways that I try to understand how things work is I look at the psychology of the individual and then I use it as a template for the population of the world as a whole.
Yeah.
Now, it's kind of a humbling thought when you think of just the whole of humanity, right? Just out there.
Yeah.
We're all nicely condensed on this planet here. But you can easily see how, just like in quantum physics, when you study one particular particle's behavior, you can calculate how that affects the field. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You can see how that works. So when you understand a particular human's behavior, you can see how that plays out in the field as well.
Mm-hmm.
But just like you mentioned with having, kids that have no idea what it's like to be in a world without internet.
Yeah.
You see that new world thinking. Suddenly you have access to unbelievable amount of information.
Yeah.
Like the whole of human thought history.
Crazy.
Right. And now that's just, we're having that in contention with the old world think, the linear think. But you know what? There's still things that two sides can teach each other.
If you look at certain things that just stick out in, like, our generation's going to be the internet generation, right? Like, I feel like it's when the internet gets introduced.
And we were Generation Y.
Well, I don't know. We'll just say that, whatever, right? But it's a trip because, throughout the change of the internet, we've seen it go from, at the beginning, they had so much data, right? And I remember when I used to sit down in front of a computer, I used to always get ideas for websites to go to from like being out and about. You'd see a sign or something, and I'd be like, "Oh, I'm gonna check that site out. It probably has games on there, right? Interactive games back in the day, right?"
Yeah.
And so I'd see like these websites, but then you'd sit down in front of a computer and you'd forget, right? That was a problem for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And then humans were like, damn it, this is a really stupid, annoying problem. And then search engines came out, right? Then all these search engines were kind of faulty as bullshit. Then they made Google. Like, they refined it. A lot of people use other search engines, but let's be honest, Google's pretty efficient. Like, you can just, like, if you want to find one website, you can, like, think of a couple of keywords, and, like, if you're actually looking for that website, you'll probably find it.
Yeah.
So, like, in that capacity alone, there's a lot of other search engines, but I'm using Google.
Like DuckDuckGo. I'd recommend that for people who don't want their searches recorded.
Yeah, so, I mean, but, like, it was interesting because that was a progression that we saw in our lifetime. And it was, like, what was that? That was that there was a problem.
Sorry, I just have to stipulate something. Just when I said DuckDuckGo, it doesn't record your search history. It's not just for people that want to watch a lot of porn. It's because when people don't record all your information, you just don't get a barrage of ads at you anymore.
Yeah.
You know, you just don't have to deal with people tracking what you're doing, what you're learning. And I seriously think that information is used against people. You saw how your search history has been used to track criminals in the U.S. You know, so that's legitimate. But sorry, what were you saying?
But yeah, so search engines now, you know, you saw it change to something that's so crazy. So you saw the progression of people had a problem. They saw, you know, first they made a solution, right? They said, we're going to make search engines. That can make it so that it's not just a bunch of websites out there. You can now find certain things you're looking for, which is a crazy evolution in itself. Yeah. Then they refined it to something like Google or like DuckDuckGo or whatever, right? But they refined it to something like that, and now it's, you know, that was they had a problem. They made a solution. They made a refined solution. And then they made multiple refined solutions. So that's like, you see that progression within such a small time period. Like from 2000, like the flip of the millennium, whatever. And that on, you look at how much everything has progressed.
Oh no, for sure, it's crazy. Insane. Like the other day, we look at like how big computers were, right? You couldn't put them in. You couldn't fit the first computer in this apartment.
Bill Gates told everybody that nobody will ever need more than 512 megabytes of storage space. He's like, you would be insane if you ever need. That's what, like, smaller than a CD now. CDs are like 700 megabytes, 800 megabytes, right? DVDs are like 4.7, right? And then Blu-rays are like, you know, in the dozens. Right? But and then so it's like now then you have SD cards which are like 32 gigabytes. You have like there's a firm out of UK that developed a chip the size of your fingernail that is like multiple terabytes. Like we're learning of new increments of data. You know, every once in a while.
Now we're looking at using crystals. For sure. And terabytes were unheard of back then too. But I mean, here's the thing: like first computers and any associated electronics.
My mom says gigabytes sometimes now. It trips me out. She's like, "How many gigabyte?" She'll say all this random shit. That's a trip, right?
But yeah, no. So you see, like, first you couldn't fit computers into a home, and they cost like just unheard of amount of money, right? Now, you know, it's $1,000. You can buy them a lot cheaper than that. Just the other day, there was this promotional event, and I got given this speaker. You just plug it into your computer. It's the shape of an apple. You extend it, and it's got colored lights in it. Like this, 10 years ago, would have cost a lot.
Oh yeah.
Would have cost easily like $300, $400.
For sure.
You know, just for this little thing with lights in it, and it's a speaker for your computer. You know, and it's just you plug it in and go. It's very accessible. But now they hand them out for free.
For sure. Dollar stores have like, you know, plug-in like portable speakers. I saw a dollar store selling Bluetooth speakers. I was like, what the like, that's crazy. Just like, you know, a Bluetooth receiver itself would have cost so much more before, right? Thank God for Chinese sweatshops. Yes. We love those Chinese sweatshops. We always wanted to support the Chinese sweatshops because they're pretty humane how they do it. Like, they've made these nets for people, so that if you try to commit suicide, it actually won't let you. So
always thinking
they're thinking of, they're always thinking of their
We're also
employees.
a huge supporter of sarcasm.
They always thinking of their employees, right? You know, you gotta make sure. So employees are first. You know, can't have any liabilities, right? But I don't know. It's just I fucking hate how Steve Jobs was so like glorified, and they made like this whole documentary about him, and it was like, but like, you know. Again, like we said, like when you have that disconnect and you look at the fact that...
Well, you know what? You look at that disconnect, right? You look at the disconnect. If anybody studies sociology, they've probably come across Dunbar numbers. You're familiar with Dunbar numbers? Yes? Dunbar.
Yeah.
Dunbar numbers basically show that people can only really relate to about a certain amount of people, about 150 or so, and that kind of goes back to the way we used to do things in terms of tribes, right?
Yeah.
If it got any bigger than that, we started to have problems. Splits, just like a cell splits, but
the
it gets
rat
too
problem
big.
too, right? Like that we were saying, the confined spaces, right?
Exactly. So that's human beings. Just like we can't really compute how much $1 billion is.
Yeah.
We can't really, or at least we don't really try to think about how our actions will affect future generations.
Yeah.
You don't really see that very often.
It's true.
But that's modern time thinking. Like it'll behoove a lot of people to see that there are cultures in South Africa, for instance, that actually they had basically a village function like this. You have 5 different parts, each specializing in a different form of agriculture or egalitarian living, and you had elders or basically council members at each one. And for instance, if one person needed to cut down a tree, that tree might be used for whatever purpose, using for tools or firewood or whatever. They would have to consult that elder, that council member, to see how that tree will affect, up to like 5 generations into the future. So you can see that thinking is actually possible, but we get the disconnect when you have something like the Dunbar problem for human beings, and then you apply that to things like global politics.
What we need to do for global politics, like we need to learn from Middle Earth, right? Like we need to do the beacons of light thing again. Like if a community agrees, they light a beacon, and we just see if the beacon goes around the world. If it goes all the way around the world, it's like, all right, let's make that as a decision for mankind.
No.
No.
What if some
no, listen.
Somebody's just not.
It's infallible. Okay? It works. Don't. I loved that scene in Lord of the Rings. So cool. Whatever. A little bit of a fanboy in that shit. I don't care.
Yeah.
Lord of the Rings, like when they light up the beacons and
What if one guy was sleeping?
The Riders of Rohan, man. It's fucking awesome.
One guy just fell asleep at the switch. I don't know.
He's probably stoned.
One guy, who checks on those guys, man? They were really remote places.
Yeah.
Yeah, but thank God for Twitter.
Me and my buddy were walking the other day, and we saw a bunch of this smoke coming from behind this bush right in front of elementary school. There's like this massive shrub, like a decorative shrub.
Yeah.
And there's just clouds of smoke coming from behind there, right? And we were just walking past, and we as we walked past, we thought in our heads. And we both glanced back. We saw kids behind there, they're smoking a joint or something, right? And they're just and we were like, "Yo, that's straight." That's how Moses saw the burning bush. It was just we pictured it that was a scene to film for our little shorts we're gonna start making on YouTube. One of my buddies wants to start getting into producing and directing just small little things.
I don't think you're gonna be stepping on holy toes with that one, but
Moses, whatever, man. Honestly, how crazy is it, man? Every time I read some of the stories,
for sure, dude. No, come on. You and I, we're both on the same page about this.
Yeah.
We could talk about religion.
Yeah.
But the fact is,
we can't. Yeah. We shouldn't bash religions. That's the thing, I guess.
No.
Because every time in the end, you are gonna step on somebody's toes. But it's dude, I don't know. Because the thing is, okay, check this out. If a cult charges get made now today, right? A modern day cult, if somebody came out and said whatever, they are Jesus, they are spreading the message, people would rip it apart, right? It would never just be
except for a small few.
Right, I know.
Waco.
And there's always there's always small groups. There's that fake Jesus in Australia. There's also
actually it's Siberia, but
no, there's one in Australia too.
No kidding.
Did I just say Australia? Or?
You said Australia.
Yeah, there is one in Australia. He's got massive acreages, and he sings Green Day or some shit. He sings, there's a real Mary too, apparently. So
there's a what?
A real Mary,
Mary Magdalene.
She's the
You mean Immaculate Birth?
I think he it is Mary who he actually is his wife, because he has a wife.
Yeah, does she have her name changed?
Does she have what?
Did she have her name changed?
Oh, you said that really weird. Does she have her name changed? But I don't know. I think that if you tried to do that shit nowadays, you tried to start a religion, people would rip you apart, right?
Well,
so it's how many things nowadays we talk as and if religions promote good stuff, they promote you to be a good person, to not a lot of the things that they promote, the commandments, the basic tenets, the pillars, whatever they're called, are all things that are basic human moral and ethical lessons and ideas, right?
Yeah.
So we should already know those.
Here is my thought on religion.
Yeah.
You take food, for example.
Mm-hmm.
You look at something like a container of Pringles or whatever kind of chip you want. You're eating this because you A, like the taste, and B, you just need sustenance. But you're not going to take the time to cut a potato up from an organic farm. So you're foregoing... Yeah, sorry about that, guys. We just had a bit of a digital hiccup or whatever. But so you're foregoing your actual proper nutrition for convenience.
Yeah.
Now, when you have a belief system, whatever religion it might be, I'm not saying that they're all totally bullshit, but I'm also saying that a lot of them do possess a lot of flaws. You're doing that too. You're foregoing the actual process of disseminating what the information is, and you're taking it into yourself and saying, this is part of me now. So by the act of just having that system, just a safety net for yourself to rely on, and just going for the convenience, you've now opened yourself up to the same flaws that it possesses.
Yeah.
So that's what I think about religions for the most part. They're just kind of, they're consumable items, like so much in this society.
Mm-hmm.
And there is a problem when you try to forego that for convenience's sake.
Yeah.
So you look at how healthy it is when you try to actually understand what you're putting into yourself. That goes on, for the intellectual level as well. That's why I think it's so important, because that's how we're ultimately going to be free.
Yeah.
But you know what? I think this is probably a good time to wrap it up. We don't want to overload people too much with this.
Yeah, this is good. I don't know if you guys noticed, we had a new intro, and we're just, I don't know, I was kind of messing around with it, and I don't know if you guys like it, leave it in the comments.
Yeah, I personally like it, but yeah, just let us know, because this is for you guys, as always.
But yeah, thanks everybody for listening, and we will bring more for you guys, and we have a couple of different more ideas for different types of material we want to put out, so it's not going to just be podcasts. We're going to kind of change it around a little bit, but yeah, thanks for listening, and we're going to go live soon. Peace out, people.
Yeah, take it easy.
Peace.